What's the likelihood you live beyond 90 and experience an S&P 500, which is down for 3 consecutive years? All right, so we're actually 2 likely events to happen. What's the likelihood, the probability of these 2 events happening? All right, so again, we're going to live beyond 90 and we're going to experience a market decline of 36 months consecutive down years. What's that likelihood to happen? So I asked I asked Claude. I said, Claude, tell me, what's the likelihood of a 65-year-old American living beyond 90 and experiencing an S&P 500 of 3 consecutive years? I had to elaborate on Grok a little bit. I said, do with rolling 36-month time frames going back to 1926, not just calendar years, rolling 36-month time frame. And so what we're going to see here, all right, so here's what Grok says. Based on true rolling 36-month analysis of the S&P 500, 3 consecutive down years occur in approximately 4.08% of all rolling periods. Over a 25-year retirement period from age 65 to 90, that would be a 97% chance of experiencing at least one 36-month decline when using a true rolling analysis. All right? If we only use calendar years, this is a mistake people make. If we only use calendar years, it was 62% of memory serves. I forgot. Did they have it on here? I can't remember. But anyway, so we got 97% of the time for a 25-year period, we're going to deal with a 3 consecutive year down year in the S&P 500. All right, downtime in the S&P 500. We got 392 overlapping periods that they analyzed, going back to 1926. Right? That's pretty good. That's pretty comprehensive. Right? We had 4 unique instances across 392 periods, 4% probability. 4 unique instances across 392 rolling periods. Interesting. And look at this: 1929 to 1931. 1930 to 1932, 1939 to 1940. See some similarities there? Yes, you do. And finally, 2000, 2002. So the Great Depression was 3 of those 4. Interesting, interesting. So total down years since 1926, we had 26 down years out of 100, 26%. 2 consecutive down years since 1926, 8% out of 100. Average annual return, which includes roughly 10% a year. All right, so basically it's not something that happens much at all, but probably one time in your retirement career. Likely for one time in your retirement career. All right, but now check this out. Worst year in history, 1931, but when you factor in inflation, it was actually 2008. Because remember, we had 9.9% deflation in 1931. Now we go back for probability for a 25-year retirement. All right. We have a number of rolling 3-year windows. We got 23, 25. What's the likelihood that you're going to live for your 25 years in retirement? Check this out. The likelihood you're going to experience at least one 3-year decline in your retirement is 61.65%. Historical frequency occurs once every 24.5 years on average. Interesting. So what does that mean? Well, if we take our life expectancy, first of all, men have a 27% chance of living until 90 at the age of 65. Women have a 37% chance of living until 90 at the age of 65. That means we have an average likelihood of living at the age of 65 till 90 or beyond, more than 25 years, of 32%. So you see where we're going here so far, right? Combined probability is a 31% probability of living until we're 90 or beyond and experiencing a 3 consecutive years of the down market. And that's for 36-month rolling periods. If we do calendar years, you'll see it's only 19%. If we do calendar years, it's only 19% probability. So the likelihood of you living until you're 90 and experiencing a calendar year or a 36-month rolling decline consecutive for 3 years or more is less than a third. And of course, most of that is simply because you're not likely to live beyond 90 years old. In fact, it gets even more interesting on that. Check this out. So I was working with this couple today, and we're just running some numbers. The likelihood of them living until they're essentially, in this case, we're going to say the wife's going to die in 20 years, and pretty significant genetics on that. Husband's going to die in 30 years. All right, so basically an average life expectancy of 25, all right, because husband's going to die in 30, wife's going to die in 20. All right, so we said at the end of the day, you get a 91% probability of dying with money, and that's 1.51 million at the end of today's dollars at the end of their death. And that's just in cash. That doesn't include the house, firearms, baseball cards, the cars, the whole thing. But I said if we change the life expectancy for each one lives 5 years older, 5 years more, it drops to 81% life expectancy. So if we change it, we say the wife will live 25 years, the husband will live 35 years. Is that right? Yeah, the husband will live 35 years. It changes dramatically. In fact, there's a pretty good chance he won't even live 30, but still, it changed it dramatically from 91% to 81%. Then I said, what if we have them both living, wife lives 30 years, husband lives 40 years, and it changes 91% to 74%. I mean, so a lot of people put the emphasis on the portfolio, the down markets and all that, and this is why I've actually come to appreciate the 3 years of cash instead of the 4 years of cash, because we just likelihood of you experiencing a 4-year down market is so small. I mean, it could happen, but just look, historically, it just doesn't happen very often. In terms of from point to point. I'm not just talking 4 consecutive years of the down market. I'm just saying I was below where I started. I started in Jan 1, 2000 at $100,000. It took me to Jan 1, 2005 to get back to $100,000. That just does not happen that often. I mean, it can, but then you combine that with the idea that are you really going to live 25, 30 years of retirement? And you can see it's just not likely to happen. So if our retirement planning is premised on this idea that there's a decent chance I, A, run out of money because I live too long, and my portfolio gets skunked, it's just the likelihood just isn't high. It's just not. Now, again, the 3-year time frame could happen. It will probably happen over the course of your life, where 3 consecutive years you're in a down market. It probably will. But then you factor in the Great Depression was a primary source of that, and you're like, now I don't want to just cherry pick, but you're like, well, the Great Depression, and that was before it. We made some mistakes with the Federal Reserve Board and all that. They called this a Fed put. Let me show you what the Fed put means. Check this out. The Fed put is a market concept suggesting the Federal Reserve will intervene to prevent the stock market and economy from falling too far. The idea is named after a financial put option, which gives the holder the right to sell an asset at a set price, providing downside protection. Historically, the Fed has taken actions like cutting interest rates and providing liquidity during crisis. Now, they did not do that in the Great Depression. They did not cut interest rates. They raised interest rates, which hurt lending. Absolutely, that hurt lending. And that was what happened was because people who were maxed out, leveraged to the hilt, had nothing to do with the stock market crash. It had more to do with the Fed increasing interest rates, reducing the money supply. And in fact, what we over-leveraged for lenders and to borrowers to buy farmland in the World War I, that was just heavily over-leveraged. And as such, that led to the mass depression that happened when the Fed raised interest rates to reduce the money supply so people can pay their debts. It's just that simple. So everyone's like, stock market caused a Great Depression. Did not. Smoot-Hawley caused a Great Depression. It's just idiotic. I mean, it's just I hear these things, I'm like, you're a freaking idiot, man. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Anyway, the point being is something called the Fed put now. And the Fed says, hey, the market's falling too much. We're going to get in there. You know, they have these circuit breakers on the Dow, and I don't know if they have one on the NASDAQ. I imagine they probably do. But they say at a certain time, when the markets fall too far, too fast, we're going to cut trading off. If memory serves, that's what happened in September 12th of 2001. I can't remember. That happens. Yeah, it's happened not quite a bit, but it happens on occasion. So the Fed put essentially, if the market goes, i.e. Great Depression territory, we're going to intervene. Now, again, does that mean you can freaking hang your hat on that? No. But we learned the history of Ben Bernanke and all the other economists that have taken over the Fed from what we did not do during the Great Depression. And so as such, we call that the Fed put now. And it's worked. We haven't had anything like the Great Depression since. We just haven't. Oh, but we have inflation. Okay, well, inflation is a different argument. Right now, we're talking about the likelihood of being down 3 consecutive years, 36-month rolling periods, and really the only time that happened essentially was in the Great Depression. And you live in beyond 25 years of retirement. Not highly probable. It's just not. So, I got a mosquito bug. Oh, man. They love me because I'm so sweet. They're like, Josh, you smell so sweet. So if you think I'm sweet, if you think I'm sweet, give me a thumbs down in the thing there. But if you think Pablo's sweet, give me a thumbs up. All right, God bless. Love your thoughts. We'll see you.